Good morning. We are going to solve proportions using cross products from 3.6 today, and then also solve equations for y, or solve for function form, with 3.8. So first we have a word problem. It says, each day the seals at an aquarium are each fed 8 pounds of food for every 100 pounds of their body weight. A seal at the aquarium weighs 280 pounds. How much food should the seal be fed per day? So first, anytime you have two pieces of information that go together, we can write that as a ratio, as some number over some number, also known as just a fraction. But a proportion is when you have two fractions, some number over some number, set equal to each other. One of those numbers might be missing, and we are going to have to solve that using cross products. Another word for product is multiply, so we're going to have to cross multiply. So first, it says they're fed 8 pounds of food for every 100 pounds of their body weight. So I'm going to write that information, because it goes together, as a fraction, 8 over 100. This is 8 pounds of food for every 100 pounds of their body weight. Now it says one seal at the aquarium weighs 280 pounds. So if we're going to set up a proportion, this 280 pounds is the number of pounds that their body weighs, not the pounds of food. So the 280 should go on the bottom, and we need to figure out what goes on the top. You could use an F for food, or a S for a seal. I'm going to just use X. So now we're cross multiplying. We're multiplying these two numbers, and we're going to set it equal to those two numbers when we multiply. So 100 times X, we could just write as 100X, and then we have 8 times 280 on the other side. If we simplify this, well, that's still 100x. 8 multiplied by 280 should give us 2,240. And then all we have to do, the opposite of multiplying, is divide. Dividing by 100 really moves our decimal point 2 places, so it should be 22.4. Now we just found X, the number of pounds of food, so a seal that weighs 280 pounds should be fed 22.4 pounds, LBS is short for pounds, of food. So here are some proportions that are already set up. We just need to cross multiply to solve them. So first, it doesn't matter which cross you do first. I'm going to do the one that's just numbers. 8 times 21. And set it equal to the other cross, which is 7m times 24. There are no parentheses here, so I'm just going to multiply 8 times 21. 8 times 21 gives me 168. And because this 7 is multiplied by m, this is all multiplication as well. 7 times 24 is also 168, but we have the m there. So to get m by itself, we need to divide by 168. And we're left with m equals 1. This next one is almost the same, except instead of multiplying, we have subtraction. Now, when we multiplied, everything was multiplication here, so it didn't matter what we multiplied. It all was going to get multiplied together. But this 9 needs to be multiplied by this whole piece. So if you ever have subtraction or addition in the middle there, you need to put that in parentheses. So we have 9 times n minus 12. And on the other side here, we have 5 times n, or just 5n. So we do need to distribute this. 9 times n is 9n. 9 times negative 12 gives me negative 108. I plugged that in my calculator. And now we need to get all the n's on the same side and solve. It doesn't matter which one I move. If I move this one here, there's not going to be anything left, which is fine. You can write 0 there. But if I move this one, I have a number on both sides still. We just end up with a negative, which is okay. We have negative 108, and now a negative 4n. And then our last step, the opposite of multiplying, is going to be divide by -4. Two negatives, multiply or divide to make a positive. So if I divide by -4, I get a positive 27. This next one is almost the same. We have adding or subtracting down here, so I know that's going to need parentheses. We're multiplying 3 by that whole piece, x minus 6, and set it equal to the other side, x times 2, or 2 times x is just 2x. So let's distribute this. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times -6 is -18. And then we need all the x's on the same side. It doesn't matter which one you move. If we do this one the opposite way, like if you wanted to move the smaller number, subtract 2x. If you move the 3, you'd get the same answer in the end. There's nothing there, so I need to put a 0 there. 3 minus 2 is 1x. And then move our 18. We're going to add 18. We get 1x equals 18. If I divide by 1, I still have 18. X equals 18. Here's a couple more. This has adding or subtracting. We're going to need to keep that in parentheses. So we have 2 times x plus 4 on one side. On the other side, I have 3 times this whole piece. This also has adding or subtracting. 3x plus 5. We need to distribute on both sides here. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 4 is 8. On this side, 3 times 3 is 9x. 3 times 5 is 15. I'm going to move the smaller x. Remember, get all your x's, your letters, your variables on the same side first. It's a positive, so I'm going to subtract 2x. We have 8 equals now 7x plus 15. And then two-step equation, get rid of addition or subtraction. I'm going to subtract 15. We have 7x equals, should be a -7. And last, to get x by itself, the opposite of multiply is divide. 7 over 7 is 1, but it's negative. I would like you to try this next one, and then click play to see if you got it right. Doesn't matter which cross you do first. I'm going to do this one, 2c times 54. And set it equal to the other side. This one has adding and subtracting though, so I need to keep that in parentheses. I have 24 times c plus 7. So this is all multiplication, so 2 times 54 will give me 108 multiplied by c. 24 times c is just 24c. But 24 times 7 gives me 168. So now I want all the c's on the same side. I'm going to subtract 24c over to be with the other c's. If you move the 108, that's fine. I just move the smaller number to keep everything positive. 108 minus 24 gives me 84. And then 168 over here. The opposite of multiply is divide. We're dividing by 84. We get c equals a nice 2. Now I divided by 84 because I wanted c by itself. We're not dividing by 168. Alright, a couple more word problems. Alright, it says, at an aquarium, the ratio of freshwater fish to saltwater fish is 3 to 5. So 3 to 5. That is freshwater to saltwater. Estimate the number of each kind of fish if the aquarium has 640 fish. So this is 640 fish total. How many more saltwater fish are there than freshwater fish? Well, first, this information really is just two pieces, two parts. When we set up a proportion, it's usually part to total. Well, these are both two parts. So total, we have 3 parts here and 5 parts here. That would make a total of 8 parts. And we know that there are a total of 640 fish. We need to figure out both parts, so we're going to actually have to solve this proportion twice. I'm going to find first the freshwater fish, so I'm going to use the 3, and figure out how many freshwater fish are there if there's 640 fish total. So we're going to cross multiply. 8 times x is 8x. 3 multiplied by 640, I'm just going to plug that in my calculator. 640 times 3 is 1,920. So I'm going to divide by 8, and we get 240. So that's 240 freshwater fish. Now we need to figure out the saltwater fish as well. So saltwater was 5 parts out of a total of 8 parts of fish, and there are still 640 fish. If you didn't want to solve a second proportion, we know that there's a total of 640 fish. If you just subtract 240, it would leave you the number of saltwater fish. But I'm going to cross multiply because that's what we're practicing, cross multiplying. 8 times x is 8x. 5 times 640 is 3,200. And if I divide by 8, I know 8 times 4 is 32, and there's 2 zeros, so it should be 400 saltwater fish. So I found the numbers of each kind of fish, but they're really asking us how many more saltwater fish are there than freshwater fish. So I really just need to subtract 400 minus 240, and that should give me 160 more. Now this one was a little tricky. We're going to do another one like that in a minute. The one thing you needed to notice here is that these are both parts. There was no total. Okay. Down here it says model ships. The ship model kits sold at a hobby store have a scale of 1 foot to 600 feet. So our model of the Queen Elizabeth II is 1.6 feet long. Estimate the actual length of the Queen Elizabeth II. They told us our model was 1 foot, and in real life the total would be 600. So even though it doesn't say total, you know that this is the big, huge ship, okay? So we need to set up our proportion. This really is the total, the real size of the ship. The model is 1.6 feet long, so the model goes on the top. We need to figure out the number on the bottom. So we're going to cross multiply. 1 times x is just 1x. 1.6 times 600. 1.6 times 600 should give me 960. If I divide by 1, we still get 960. We were talking about feet. That means this boat in real life from here to here would be 960 feet long. It's a really big boat. Alright. This one says challenge. This is like the other one. At a typical National Football League game, the ratio of females to males in attendance is 2 to 3. 2 is the females, 3 is the males. Estimate the number of male and female spectators at a game that has 75,000 spectators. So if we're going to set up our proportion, one fraction equal to the other fraction, we have to have the part to the total. Well, these are both parts. There's 3 parts males and 2 parts females, so total there are 5 parts. All I did was add those up. I'm going to find the females first. That part would be 200. On the bottom, our total is number of spectators, 75,000. We need to figure out how many of those are females. So if we cross multiply, 5 times x is 5x. 2 times 75,000, well, 75 times 2 would be 150 with the zeros. So if I divide by 5, x should equal, well, 15 divided by 5 is 3, and all the zeros, so 30,000. Whoopsies. So this is the number of females. We also need to find the number of males. We could do this same thing again with 3 over 5 and x out of 75,000 and cross multiply. But I know that there are 75,000 people total and there are 30,000 females, so I just subtract. That would give us 45,000 males. This time they did not ask us how many more, they just asked how many of each, and there we go, those are our two answers. Our last type of problem that you need to know how to do using a scale on using a ratio is the scale on a map. A map has a scale of 1 inch to 38 feet, so I can write that as 1 over 38. This is inches on the top and feet on the bottom. It says use the given map distance, so they're telling you on the map we have 5.5 inches. We need to find the actual distance. So if inches are on the top, 5.5. We need to find x on the bottom. So if we cross multiply, 1 times x is 1x. 38 times 5.5, I'm going to plug that in my calculator, gives me 209. If I divide by 1, it is still 209. And on the bottom we were talking about feet. This second problem, you're using the same scale because it's the same map. 1 inch to 38 feet. But this time our map we're looking at 2.25 inches. I put that on the top because it's talking about inches. So if we cross multiply, 1 times x is 1x. 38 times 2.25 is 38 times 2.25, 85.5. And again, we are talking about feet on the bottom. Alright, our next part of our lesson is talking about rewriting equations and formulas. Same thing we did with solving equations, except now we have two letters, x and y. All we're going to do is to rewrite it so that y is all by itself, solving for y. Function form means solve for y. So just like we did before, we're going to add, subtract, multiply, and divide to get this letter y all by itself. So if there's any other term, like this 2x, on the same side as the y, we need to move it over to the other side. Well, this 2x is a positive 2x, so in order to move the whole thing, we need to subtract 2x. So 2 minus 2 is 0. We have 2y left over. Now we can't combine these because this 8 is just a number and this negative 2 has an x with it. So we have to write them separately. But we always want to practice writing our x term first. So we're going to write negative 2x, and then this is a positive 8, so plus 8. Then our y is not by itself, this is multiplied, so we need to divide by 2. We need to divide every single term by 2. So 2 over 2 is 1, so that's negative 1x, plus 8 divided by 2 is 4. So our answer is not going to be just one number, it's going to be an expression. Y equals and then something else. Our x is in our number. Alright, so let's solve this one. We need to leave the y's here for now. We need to move the x's and our numbers over to the other side. It doesn't matter which one you do first. If you want to do them at the same time, add 9 and add 4x, you can. Those eliminate and those eliminate because we're moving them over to the other side. Write your x's first. We have 4x. And 0 plus 9 is 9. And then last, the opposite of multiplying by 9 is divide by 9. So we have y equals, now 4 over 9 is not going to be a nice number, so just leave it as a fraction. 4 over 9x and plus 9 over 9, which is 1. Let's do a couple more. We're trying to get y all by itself. So here's our term y, that's with the negative there. We're going to move the x over to the other side, or not the x, the 11 over to the other side. It's positive, so we need to subtract. I'm putting it under the other term that's only just a number as well, because we can combine those. We can't combine the 11 with the x's. So those are gone. 3 minus 11 would give us negative 8. And then we have negative 4y. It would be better to write your x's first. So we could flip this around and write 6x minus 8. It means the same thing. And then last, the opposite of multiplying by 4 is dividing. We're dividing by negative 4. So we have y equals, now 6 divided by 4, we can simplify that if we divide by 2. That would give us 3 over 2, but it's negative. With the x, negative 3 over 2x. Two negatives multiply to make a positive, or divide to make a positive. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So all we're trying to do is to get y by itself. I want you to try this one on your own and then check to see if it's right. If I move my x's over to the other side, I'm going to add 6x. Let me erase this part. I wrote it off to the side a little bit because I can't combine the x's with the number, so it's just 6x plus 14 equals 7y. And then last, the opposite of multiplying by 7 is dividing by 7. Divide every piece by 7. 6 over 7, it's not going to be a nice number, so just leave it as 6 over 7x plus 14 divided by 7, which is 2. Here's two more. Again, I would suggest having you try these on your own and then check to see if you got it right. Here's our letters, y. We need to move this 4 over to the other side. I'm going to subtract 4. Again, notice I put it under the number that you can combine it with. We have 6y. 12x is just 12x. And a negative 2 minus 4, they're all negatives. That's a total of negative 6. And then last, the opposite of multiplying is divide. So we have y equals 12 divided by 6 is 2x, and minus 6 over 6, which is 1. Again, all we're trying to do is get y by itself. We call that, again, function form. This one looks like a lot. Here's our y's. We need to move whatever else is on that same side to the other side. So this is a positive. We need to subtract 36. So 36 minus 36 makes 0. And we have a negative 6y. One thing we forgot to do over here was to combine our like terms. 8 minus 5 should give us 3x, so we really have 3x here. And then 21 minus 36, there's more negatives, so I know it's going to be a negative number. If you want, you can plug that right in your calculator. Should give you a negative 15. And then last, the opposite of multiplying is divide. Divide by negative 6. Dividing is the only time where you divide all three parts. 3 over 6 is the same as 1/2 if we divide by 3. But it's negative, so negative 1/2x. Two negatives multiply to make a positive. And the only time we really care that this is a fraction is simplifying here with the x's. The other number that's just a number, it does not really matter if you write it as a fraction or a decimal. So I'm just going to convert that to a decimal. So what I mean to say is, anytime there's a number with the x, keep it as a fraction if you can. Alright? Last couple problems are more application problems. We've been solving for y this whole time. Now they just want us to solve for a different letter. This one they want us to find h all by itself. It says the area of a triangle is given by this formula. Area equals 1/2 base times height, where b is the base and h is the height. Part A, solve the equation, solve the formula for h. So I'm just going to rewrite it. A equals 1/2 bh. And these are all multiplied here. We want to get h all by itself. First, to get rid of this fraction, we need to multiply by the reciprocal, 2/1. Oops, not 2/2. So those eliminate. 1/1 and 2/2 make just 1. They eliminate. We have b and h multiplied there. 2 times a is 2a. If we divide by 1, it's still 2a. So then last, to get h by itself, the opposite of multiplying by b would be dividing by b. Now we have h all by itself, and our answer is just 2a over b. It doesn't really matter what ends up on this side, as long as you have h all by itself. Now part B, use the rewritten formula, so this formula, to find the height of the triangle shown, which has an area of 64.4 square meters. And over here, our picture, our base of our triangle is 14 meters. So I'm just going to rewrite this. It says 2a over b equals h. So let's plug it in. It says 2 times a, and area right here is 64.4, divided by b, the base, which is 14. That will give us our height. So first, if I just plug in my calculator, 64.4 times 2, I get 128.8, but I need to divide it by 14. I get a nice 9.2. We were talking about meters, so you could put an m on there for meters. That is that height right there. Here's a couple more. I think, yep, those are the last two. It says the volume of a cone is v equals pi r squared h divided by 3. Solve for h. So first, I'm not even going to read any further. I'm going to solve this for h. These are all multiplied here because they're touching. First, if I want h by itself, this big long division here, the opposite of division would be multiplying. If I multiply by 3 on both sides, I get rid of that 3. So I have 3v equals pi r squared h. And we want h all by itself. The opposite of multiplying would be dividing. If I'm going to divide by pi here, I'm also going to divide by r squared. Dividing by pi, and I'm dividing by r squared. Pi over pi cancels. R squared over r squared, same number on the top and the bottom, they eliminate. We have h all by itself. So we have 3v over pi r squared. We now have h all by itself. Now it says find h, what the number is, when v equals 25.12, r is 2, and it says use 3.14 for pi. So I'm going to take this and plug it all in. It says 3 times v, and v is 25.12. Oops, I wrote a 4. Divided by pi, they said use 3.14. Times our radius squared, and our radius is 2, so 2 squared. That will give us our height. So I'm going to simplify the top here. I'm multiplying 3 times 25.12. That gives us 75.36 on the top. Order of operations tells me to do exponent first. We can't multiply. 2 squared is really just 4. So we have 3.14 times 4, which is 12.56. So if we divide 75.36 divided by 12.56, wow, I get a nice 6. And we were talking about centimeters, so 6 cm if you want to put your units on there. Last problem. It says the surface area of a regular pyramid is S equals B plus 1/2 PL. Solve for L. So let's do that. S equals B plus 1/2 PL. And then we're going to plug in some things. So just like we solved for y way back here, oops, too far. When we solved for y, we moved the other term over to the other side, got rid of our addition and subtraction, then multiplication and division. That is exactly what we're doing here as well. If we want L by itself, well, let's get rid of this B that was added on. So I'm going to subtract B. I can't combine S and B. They're subtracted, S minus B. And then I'm left over with 1/2 PL. Now, I want L by itself. To get rid of that fraction, the opposite of multiplying by a fraction would be multiplying by its reciprocal, 2/1 times 2/1. We're multiplying this whole piece by 2/1. So those cancel, and those cancel. We're left with PL. 2 times that whole piece on the top, I'm just going to leave it as 2 times S minus B. If you wanted to distribute, you could, but dividing by 1 is not going to do anything. And then last, we want L by itself. The opposite of multiplying by P is dividing by P. So we have 2 S minus B all over P. Bunch of random letters all smashed together so that we could have L all by itself. Now we're going to take this and we are going to plug in what we know. We know S is 68, B is 18, and P is 20. So it says 2 times S, and S is 68, minus B, which is 18, all divided by P, which is 20. That will give us L, the length. So if we follow the order of operations, parentheses first, 68 minus 18 should give us 50. And then multiplying on the top, 2 times 50 would give us 100. And 100 divided by 20, 20 goes into 100 5 times. So our length is 5 inches. You have a test coming up, so make sure you create a note card for that. And then your homework right here. You have to do 3.6 out of the book and 3.8 worksheet, the odds. Good luck!